All right, what's going on, everyone? I'm excited to welcome my buddy William Renken to the show today. And this is a bit of a unique episode because usually we have either myself on here, we have contractors on here, and William is neither of those things. He is a magnificent content creator, storyteller, master of all things video. And that's something that we believe heavily in here at Contractor Dynamics and that we train our clients on, that we instill into our marketplace and kind of beat that drum every day. So I want you guys to hear about the importance of video and storytelling from someone other than me, because you're probably sick of hearing it from me. And I figured no better person to have on here than someone that I've gotten to know over the years through the roofing industry that has provided a ton of value and just really wows people with his content and storytelling. So hopefully this conversation lives up to that introduction. I'm sure it will. What's going on, my friend?
Not too much, man. I appreciate you having me on because I remember what really sparked it was I've obviously I follow your posts, Joe. So like when I see when I saw what you were talking about with storytelling and about video and about cameras and trying to get help people get over the hump about some of the preconceived notions or the obstacles, I was like, man, this would be really a cool conversation to have because I think it's really important. What you're trying to tell people through what they can do on Facebook. I mean, the simplest thing you said is true. I think I heard it once. Our phones have more power and more sophistication than the lunar landing had, which was incredible to hear. But it's true. And when you drill down to the marketing sense, it's like you can do everything on your phone. You don't have to have all the cool stuff. And believe me, I love looking at pictures. Oh my gosh, look at that rig. Look at that vest they're wearing with all those neat lenses in there. But then it's that's great and that'll accomplish something. But you could shoot something on a phone and people never know it because the quality is that good in comparison. So I really enjoy when you put out content like that because I just think that's so important because I just meet so many people all the time. They're like, oh, I can't do what you do. And I'm like, well, man, yeah, you can. I mean, you can do it. Anybody can do this. They really can. It doesn't take much anymore. The technology is so democratized that there's little room for excuse anymore as to at least getting out there and attempting it, So I say I really appreciate what you put out there in terms of that type of content.
Awesome. Yeah, I think it was a post I made a couple months ago, and you wrote this really long, insightful, thoughtful comment on it, and I was like, man, I want to reply. Obviously, that warrants a good reply. I was like, you know what? It's probably just easier to hop on and talk about it than for me to try to articulate this long response. And thank you for sharing your insights and all that. And this way, more people get to benefit from it because we're distributing this audio, video, and all the platforms and all that. And yeah, that is something that as a marketing training company, we're training our clients on doing video. We're trying to convince everyone to do video because it's not the only way, but is one of the best ways to really build your brand, get your story out there, generate business, and expand and deepen your impact, whatever that means for you. One of the biggest things that we kind of coach our clients on is getting out of their own comfort zone, getting over that fear. And I think that holds people back. It's like, well, I don't have the right equipment. I don't have the right camera. I don't want to do it unless I can look amazing, right? And my theory and our team's philosophy is hey, you don't need to be great. Just get out there and get those reps in. And then if you want to graduate at some point to a fancy camera, great. But you don't even have to do that at any point. It's about telling the story, and you can do that with any device, really. The smartphones these days are amazing, and there's little gadgets that we can add onto our smartphones, microphones, and things like that can really help amplify our voice and tell that story. But yeah, talk about that a little bit. What do you see that in your line of work? I know you work obviously closely with a lot of contractors, which we'll get into in a minute, but you see that fear and that sort of thing as well?
I do. I mean, and I think a lot of it comes down to and most of the space I'm in is roofing. And a lot of times with roofing, it's well, how interesting can you make roofing, in terms of video, because it just doesn't seem like there's that much that's interesting. And it's actually the opposite. There's a lot of interesting things you can do. You just got to sit down and you got to think about it. I think the technology is part of it. I also think another part of it too is just thinking through, I think people get scared about I don't have enough interesting stuff to tell. And it's you can do it. There's just a lot of different ways. And that's why when you talk about reps, it's well, you can put out this video. You you just got to try a lot of different things, and you just got to figure out like what are people responding to, where are the interactions coming from, like, oh, do they like it when we do a funny thing, when we do something that maybe it's a little more comedic, has a little bit more of a funny edge to it. Well, yeah, maybe. Do they like videos with testimonials? Do they like videos where they see like that really cool drone shot or whatnot? What do they like? And the audience will tell you. Like you'll see just, and even if you dig into your analytics, like, okay, I'm getting more impressions or I'm getting more things of that nature on this day with this post, do it. And if you don't, it's okay. Because if you're doing the reps, if you're being consistent, if one video doesn't measure up to expectations and doesn't move the needle up, well, move on. Just move on from it, get to the next one and keep going and keep going. Like you can't focus on, I guess what it boils down to a lot is I see a lot of people, they'll try one thing and if it doesn't work, then they just don't do anything else. It's like, I can't do it. It didn't work. Nobody looked at it. It's like, well, of course not. I mean, like, I remember the first time I published a podcast, we did a wrestling podcast in 2015. There were like 5 people who listened to it. And it was like, oh no, what's that mean? It's like, well, it means we just need to do another one. So maybe we get 6 and then 7 and so on and so forth. And then eventually years down the road, it was like, we had 1,000 an episode or whatever. And it was just like, hey, it's just by doing the reps, the repetition and just getting over it and finding like, what is kind of a good groove. And because I guess specifically like a lot of the content I see roofers will show me at retreats, like, oh man, I did this video. And I'm like, it's just one drone shot of a house. I'm like, I mean, it's awesome. It's a drone. It's, a lot of people can fly drones really sophisticatedly. They can do some nice arcs and it looks like a helicopter shot from a movie. It looks great, but there's no story to it. It's like, okay, well, what can you do? Start asking the questions like, what would be cool to add to this? And then that's when you can just get into that area of trying things. Like, let's work in some testimonial stuff. Let's get a project manager on camera talking about this particular roof. Maybe there's a very specific, interesting story about this roof. Like, oh my gosh, this is somebody who had a catastrophic thing happen. They had to suddenly call somebody. They got us in there within this amount of time. We were able to do this, that, and the other. That's when it's like, now you've opened the floodgates. Now you've got some stories you can tell with this, and it can be a really interesting piece. So it's a combination. The technology is one thing, and then just getting over the hump of like, oh my gosh, I don't have enough story to tell. Man, you got a lot of story to tell. Like every community is different. There are stories within the community with your company that you can tell, and it makes such a difference. Florida, I don't know what's going to happen with the hurricane. I don't know whenever we drop this, we know there could be some activity in the Southeast with a hurricane, with a big storm. When it happens, of course, everybody comes flying in. Everybody's got signs. There's everybody who's coming in. Everybody's trying to capitalize off it. The people are going to win are the people that have gotten good relations with the community, that have earned their trust. In a lot of ways, you earn the trust is through that content and getting it out there on Facebook or on whatever platform you use to connect with. And it's just so important. And that's why it's like you have to keep trying, because that will help establish those roots of trust that you have and all that. So storytelling and technology, it's finding that marriage of the two that works within your company,
Nice. I love that. Yeah, like the drone footage thing, it bugs me because, that was cool 5 years ago when drones were first starting to like kind of come out and get popular, where you kind of have some drone flyover footage and it's like, okay, that's cool. Nowadays, where, everyone has a drone, attention spans are even smaller these days, shorter, whatever. That's just not interesting. So someone's got a drone, they're doing some drone content for, say you're a roofing contractor. You mentioned like having a project manager on there telling a story, a client testimonial. I think that one of the holdups, and you can probably articulate this better than I can, but like one of the holdups with people, they're like, they don't really conceptualize that you can like, maybe splice a couple different things together. Or if you're taking that drone footage today on a Wednesday, it doesn't mean that you have to like, publish that on a Wednesday. You could just have that footage kind of sitting in your, on your drive, on your computer or whatever it is, so that you can use that in some other capacity. But the concept of like, okay, I'm shooting this on a Wednesday, I don't have to publish it right away. I'm going to put this in my content library so that we can create something with different aspects. And that might be intimidating for people that don't do video editing. How would you kind of coach someone on like, that strategy and how to implement that without being, having a big background in editing?
No, it's simple. Like, and the thing is like, what's great is like, we know it through the things that we like, whether it's on our phone or on Netflix or on these streamers. We know when we watch these things, like what we subtly like when we watch any of these things, like what are the types of content that are good to see. And so what's great to have is just a bank. You just start building a bank of B-roll. Like especially like if we do a studio shoot, like if I'm doing something with Hunter in there and we're talking about fulfillment 50, right? We're talking about fulfillment 50. We're talking about why it's important to go through your 10 blessings, 10 targets, excuses, all of them. And what's interesting is like at all the retreats, I get footage of people writing down their fulfillment 50. A lot of times for those individual videos, I may not use all of that content for that particular video for that retreat, but I always hold on to it because if we do something down the road where we're talking about self-development or specifically fulfillment 50, I can pull that. I can go to that. That's why, speaking specifically for like roofing, like drone shots or any kind of just general B-roll of project managers or any type of laborers working on I can bank that, because if we're doing any kind of maybe a montage about the company, a video about the company as a whole, that kind of stuff can be great to pull in there. It's easily recyclable. I know one thing I think is outstanding. Like for example, I noticed this first with Brian's company, Quality Roofing, down in Florida. They would take drone shots, and they didn't even necessarily have to be a specific resident's house, but they would marry it with a testimonial, a written one, like a 5-star review or something they had gotten on Google. And it was beautiful. It was very simply done, like a light animation, real easy to do. It's built into whatever program they were using. And they would bring that, they'd use that drone footage that, again, may not even be that house. It may not even be that customer they're referencing, but they've got it and they can use it again for this. And if you bank like 10 or 15 of those, they become indistinguishable. I mean, like Hunter literally talked about one of the genius talking points he has about how he did his social media back in the day is he'd be on a roof and he would take a photo from like 10 different spots on there and use that throughout the coming weeks to make it appear like we're on all these different roofs. Well, it's really one roof, but from all these different angles, you wouldn't know the difference. And that can be good because then you're like, okay, now I have a bank of content that I can use throughout the week. So that way it's not like, oh man, there's nothing interesting going on this week, so we can't put anything on social. And that's nonsense. There's something you can put out there. You can do, even if it's something that you've already shot weeks ago, repurpose it.
Right.
Find a way to repurpose it and use it now. Because most of the time, people aren't going to know. They're not going to know the difference, and it doesn't matter. It's not. There's no bearing on it whatsoever. It doesn't mean anything. You can use that shot whatever it is, to help tell a story now or get across a point or something that you want to do now. So that's what's just B-roll. You can never have enough of it. That's why at a retreat, the reason I shoot all day and into the deepest part of the evening is because I never know what I can use either for that video or for a promo down the road or something. So it's invaluable just to keep shooting and get as much stuff as you can.
Can you define for the audience what B-roll is?
Yeah. So like if you took our video right now, and when I'm talking about a revolt retreat, all of a sudden I would throw up keeping this audio rolling, but have the video change to literally footage of a revolt retreat. So it is visual. It's footage that complements that can complement the audio that's in your video, or it can complement what video was previously playing or whatnot. So even if it was like one of you, Joe, like all of a sudden we can cut to you at one of the retreats talking about the importance of being able to educate contractors about the use of video in their marketing. We can cut to footage of you doing that. Right. And that's what becomes just really important. That's why having that diversity of footage that you've accumulated is just so important, because you can always bring it to, because I mean, this is something I always think about. Joe, when you scroll through like Facebook, your sound isn't on initially, right? Until you touch the video, right?
Yep.
That's how most people have it.
Right.
My phone loves to try and turn it on, and I have to go in and tell it to turn it off because you never know where you're at, and you don't want your videos to start playing automatically wherever you're at. That could be bad. But that becomes interesting then, like if you're scrolling and you're looking at a video and you're like, okay, it's just a drone shot, but that's all it is. It's not doing anything. But then it's like, it goes from a drone shot. Oh, there's a project manager. Oh, there's another shot of somebody working on the roof. Now there's the homeowner. It's like, this is interesting. Now I'm a little more interested in taking some time to see what this company is all about. And that's just where having that B-roll is important. It's just stuff that you can cut away to while you still have your audio going, while you still have like whatever your A-roll is of whoever's on camera that you're interviewing, or if you're the person talking in front of the camera, you're the A-roll. You can cut to some of that B-roll to kind of mix it up. So that way it's not just stuck on just one thing the whole time. That's what makes videos interesting.
I totally agree. Yeah. And one way to look at it is like you and I are on this right now. We're talking about doing video, we're talking about drone shots, but like it's awesome. It would be awesome to be able to show like what we're talking about, show some drone shots of roofs and things like that. So
Are you giving a hint
knowing
to your editor?
what's that?
Are you giving a hint to Pedro, your editor, telling him
Yeah,
what
yeah,
he
for
should cut in
sure.
here?
Absolutely. And we do that, right? Because that's part of it. You want
Yeah.
to show what you're doing. And that's like when we go to events and I speak at events, certainly like we will, pay whatever, not whatever, but we always hire someone, whether it's locally or bring someone with us to get that footage that we might not use right away, but we'll certainly use in, some other capacity. And then the other part of that is, I don't know the stats, but like we're so conditioned as people to be, to see the frame switching every few seconds, right? Whether we're watching TV or whether we're watching, some kind of whatever production it is, like the frame is always switching. And fortunately or unfortunately, like that's necessary in order to hold people's attention these days, right? Like, is there a stat on that? Like every 3 to 7 seconds, you should be like switching up
Oh
the
man,
frame or.
I swear, like there are times where it's even shorter than that. Like there's this awesome thing you should go watch. It's from, I think, Taken 2. There's a scene from Taken 2, and somebody it's deliberately titled this way. It has to do with like how many cuts does it take, how many editing cuts does it take Liam Neeson to get over this wall? I'm serious when you see it, it's like 10 different cuts just to show somebody getting over a wall. And I may be exaggerating, but it's hilarious because it's only like a 5-second scene, but there's all these rapid cuts to it. So the stat, I'll tell you, man, it's such a moving target. There's some movies, man, you can watch that you're just like, oh my God, like you're exhausted because it's cut.
Right.
It has cut so much. So there is a fatigue that can come with it. It's all about just like, what is your story? What are you trying to tell? Like, I'll give you an example. Like when I cut together the VIP party for RoofCon, that is a very different video than like day 3 where John Maxwell's on stage talking. That's a very deliberate video. It has a very, not a slower edge to it, but it's a little bit more drawn out. Like I want you to be able to hear the audio, have some nice cuts, probably some slow motion cuts, things I've slowed down. So that way it's just it's a bit more fluid or whatnot. But then the VIP video it's a party.
Yeah.
So guess what? I'm going to change some things. I want the energy to come through in the video. So that way, so in that reason, there's going to be a lot more cuts. There's going to be a lot more fast camera moving and stuff like that. So it's all about like, why are you doing it? Like when I mentioned before, like, oh, you can cut to this, you can cut to that, and cut to the other. It doesn't mean fast. So you don't have to do it necessarily rapidly. Just like, when does it make sense? Like we're all viewers. We know like when we're watching something, like I feel like it should go somewhere now. I just feel like it. I have that, like I get really picky then when I'm watching back something I've made. I'm like, I don't know, I'm getting a little antsy. It's even the shots lasted a little too long. I just feel like it needs to go somewhere. Is there a B-roll I can go to? Maybe I need to trim this, cut some audio out of this and mash it together or something like that. It's really just about feeling out what your story is for that particular thing. In roofing, unless it's like you're showing like a process and you're wanting to like, or maybe you have to span a lot of time. Maybe you get a little more rapid in there to be like, okay, boom, 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 boom. We just, within the 30 seconds, we got through 3 days worth because we were moving really fast. It just depends. It just depends on your story, whether or not you need to cut that fast.
Okay. That makes sense. And I think a lot of the audience, we're nodding our heads like, okay, I get that. How do I make that happen? Obviously you're professional and we keep teasing what you do in your background. We haven't gotten there yet, but that's fine. We can hold that suspense. But how do people actually like make that happen, right? Like without having a film degree or editing, are there some basic tools that people should they do it themselves, or should they find someone like you to do it for them? Like, what do you recommend?
I think anything a business owner can offload is great because, man, if you're not necessarily a one-man show, but like let's say it's only like a 3-man show, but like and everybody's having to juggle a lot of different, having to take on this part of it can be really hard. Especially if you want to make it look, and I agree with what you said, even if it's not like perfect, if it's decent enough, it's watchable enough, it's good enough to get on Facebook or social, it can be really hard though. It can be really difficult when you're just one man. I definitely advise getting somebody like, and you don't have to go get somebody who's been like a veteran shooter or something like that. You can get people, depending on where you live. If you've got a university nearby, there's a good chance they have a media arts department. And I can tell you from my experience, I would have loved somebody to come in there like, hey, you're about to graduate, guess what? Or maybe if you're a junior, you're just looking for something for the summer or whatever. If somebody came with an opportunity to go shoot up, like, absolutely. When can I go? When can I sign up? Because if nothing else, you can offload at probably a pretty low rate, since they're either a beginner or they have or only maybe a little bit of experience. You can offload that for low cost. They can get their feet wet. They can build their portfolio, and depending on whether or not it's a good fit, when they get out, you can bring them on full time or whatever fits your budget. I mean, like budgets. I mean, I'm a very budget conscious person, and I understand that like not everybody can necessarily bring on somebody full time, and I get it. But I'll tell you, the way I got in with Cornerstone was not a very traditional way that Hunter found me. It was a very, maybe it will become more traditional, or has. But for me, what I was used to, where I fill out an application, I go in person with my suit on, and I go. That's how we. I'm 39, so like I just feel like I'm still learning new things when it comes to all of this as I go. But I just other than that, like, there's technology wise to be able to get it going. Like, you don't have to have all the fancy programs like Canva. Canva has video editing in it. We talk about Canva all the time for graphics. It's awesome. If you don't do Photoshop, you can do Canva. It's great. It's also got video editing. There are a lot of these now. Like, they're more and more popping up all the time. They are either free or they're very low cost, simple to use video editors that you can use on your computer. You don't even have to have like an awesome like media computer to be able to do it. I mean, that makes it easy. So that way, then, like, your investment doesn't have to be super high to be able to get somebody in there, give them some initial technology to start off with, and let's see how it goes. Like, wow, they're really catching on to this. Oh, they have ideas for this. Well, let's invest a little bit more. What's our return? Are we getting return on some of this content? Okay, maybe we can invest in a camera. Maybe we can invest in this newer program, or a program that's a little more opens up a little bit more opportunity for them to do a few more things. I just think that, like, if you can bring in that person from either, like I said, a university somewhere close by, somebody who's just wants to do video, because there are people everywhere who want to do this. They want to be able to dive in and be able to do something with it. Be able to bring them in would be great. I think that's the best way to do it, is to have somebody.
Yeah, that's a great answer. I don't want to say I've never edited a video, maybe less, maybe 3 in my entire life. I don't edit our videos. I don't have an interest in it. It's not the highest and best use of my time as the owner of the company. So, we have people that do that locally and, remote as well. So what we recommend, and we train our clients, roofing contracting companies, on how to do their own marketing. We've only had like 1 or 2 owners that are really like, yes, I really do like the video editing. It's like, they'll do it late at night as a way to like relax and unwind, and they do it. Other than that, yeah, they're hiring someone either in-house to do it, or outsourcing it locally, and that's a great way to go, because there are people that have an amazing skill set. They have their own equipment in many cases. They're just looking for experience, or looking to make a couple bucks. We've had college interns here, our local university, Monmouth University. We even had a high school intern at one point, Jack. He was amazing. We were trying to convince him to come on full time, but he went to college in California, and he's doing great. But yeah, there are people, just put it out there locally, and you'll be surprised. So it's not something that we recommend to an owner of a contracting company to do, just because it is time consuming, and there are more important things for you to do in your business. Not that video is not important, but you need to focus on your unique ability and what only you can do in the business, right? All right, so that makes sense. Canva, iMovie is a great way to start. You can graduate.
iMovie is also great. iMovie's on your phone.
Yeah.
What's great is now it's on the phone. You could almost bypass the whole computer altogether and do it on your phone. And there's gosh, I downloaded Premiere Rush just to have it on my phone. For me, like, being used to doing it on the computer, like sometimes I get frustrated with doing it on the phone, but if you're just starting out and you've never touched on the computer, it can be great, and it can be really simple for you. So absolutely, iMovie's a great one.
Cool. And Premiere Rush, is that like the entry level Adobe product?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, it's kind of like it's kind of like their phone version of it. I think it started off as a phone version. Well, it didn't necessarily start off as a phone. I think there is a computer version of it now that's kind of a light, stripped down,
okay,
less intimidating version of it.
Yeah.
Sort of like Photoshop Express back in the day. There was Photoshop Express, which was, again, kind of a tighter, the bare essentials type of Photoshop program. So Premiere Rush can be really good. The Adobe Suite, I think, is just if you have the budget for it, the Adobe Suite, it can be invaluable.
Yeah.
With and there's so many things in there. There's things I haven't even touched yet in there that are
Awesome.
great. But that's when you get into After Effects and all of that. Anyway.
Yeah, one of our clients in Texas just recently, she's a marketing manager at a roofing company, and they recently invested in Final Cut and Adobe, so she's excited about that. So, all right, so yeah, those are great tips as far as editing and all that. Now, you've talked about this a few times already. For those of you, or for those of the audience that don't know you or what you do, tell us about that, because that's how we met, and I think a lot of people will at least recognize the names that you're working with and the organizations that you're working with, and people have probably already seen your content and seen your amazing work, whether they realize it or not.
So I am the cinematographer for roofing.com, Revolt, and for RoofCon, all three of them. So I work for Hunter Ballou. I started off it was funny. It was just a really interesting circumstance. A Facebook group is how I got hired. That's what I was teasing earlier. There was a post in a Facebook group here in Greenville looking for a videographer, just somebody for Cornerstone to be full time. And what was really cool was very quickly that changed into doing it for RoofCon, then Revolt, then just kind of moved up from there. Just once we got our relationship going, it was like, oh, this is what I can do, and this is what you can provide for me to do. This is great. This is a perfect marriage for what we do. So I go around my when I think about in my brain, the hierarchy of things is, first of all, anything has to do with Revolt, with our retreats that we put on. I'm there. I'm there from the beginning to the end, shooting the entire day. I'll do recap videos for that day. I'll do a final recap when it's over with. And even when we mix in some activities like the incredible football game we have every single time, which is the best part of the weekend, is getting to shoot a football game on the ground. That's one of the best things ever. But I do that. I do studio stuff when we're in studio. If we're putting out a training. If there's any type of, any type of testimonial stuff that we do with Revolt, I'll be there to shoot that, edit that together. Then RoofCon, going to the event, shooting promo videos for it, shooting recap videos of the day, getting testimonials from that. Same thing in the general umbrella of roofing.com. I'm just, anytime there is an opportunity for video, and that just comes in a variety of different forms, I'm going to be there. And what's great is it's a thing that becomes easier and easier. So if something pops up quickly, because I've got all that B-roll, circling back to what we talked to earlier, boom, I can repurpose that and get that out quickly and everything. So it's all about speed. It's all about working with some purpose to be able to get that stuff out there. So that's what I do. If you're not familiar with Revolt is a mastermind that has to do with self-development and business development for business owners. I mean, our biggest thing is we focus on mind, body, and legacy. And we bring in, we're going to be having a retreat coming up October 13th through the 16th in Gatlinburg, Tennessee, where we, again, will bring in a host of business owners to this free retreat. Yes, it's free. Bring them in. And what's interesting is and I get to observe every one of these. I have filmed every one of them. We've had over a dozen now. And no matter what, even though the trainings can be the same, the group of people is always different. The stories are incredible to hear, because everybody, not only they come from somewhere different, or they have a different circumstance as to how they got into business. When we talk about getting into self-development, we talk about the things that aren't fun to talk about. We talk about the things that may be holding you back from being not only successful in your business, but in your family, in your personal life. And to hear those stories as to what are those things, and then seeing people take those initial steps to get over them, that's incredible. That's what makes it fun for me to be able to shoot. That's why, a lot of times it has almost nothing to do with roofing. These are just people who have stories. They come from this, they have a conflict, then they take action and resolve it. And then later on, we can see the fruits of that work. So getting to shoot all that is a blast for me. So that's one of the great things about working for Revolt and with RoofCon is you just see and you get to meet some incredible people. You get to hear their stories, and you get to see where they're going, even from when they came in, but then even down the road afterwards, following up with them. So that's what I'm doing. I'm a full-time shooter for the whole thing.
Yeah, and probably more than full time, man. We met at, I think maybe before that, but where I really saw you kind of in action was at one of the member retreats in Revolt last year in Utah. And that was amazing. We were doing some pretty cool, off-roading. We were freaking water skiing, wakeboarding. We were, all sorts of things. It was nuts. Oh, we were doing Murph every night at
The Murph was the best because like this is what's so much fun about this. What I love about shooting sometimes is when like the unexpected comes up and it's like it's 11 o'clock at night in Utah. We're gonna go out to a park at night and do a Murph, and you're gonna film it. All right, when do we go? Let's get. And it was wild when we got out there. It's like there's no light. How are we gonna make this work? Well, just angle it this way or whatever. It was so much fun. It's probably one of my favorite videos because it was so spontaneous. And it was just like, I got to figure out what the story is in just a couple seconds here as we start shooting and just go for it. And that's what made Utah so much fun. It was like there were a lot of times where something would come up and it's like, oh, let's get recording here. And it's like you said, even if we're not going to use it now, there is something this can be used for later. That was so much fun. That was such a fun retreat.
That Murph was crazy. Like I normally go to bed at like 9:30. So the fact that we're like going out at 11:30 was at mountain time, which is, I'm East Coast. So like, it's like the middle of the night for me. I'm like, oh, everyone else is doing it, so let's go. And then we get back, we're all sweaty, we're tired, we're trying to grab some water, maybe a quick bite to eat. And there's William over there in the corner, drinking a coffee or whatever, Red Bull or whatever. He's just, editing. And like, by the time you wake up in the morning, that video is already out on YouTube. And you're like, this, like, what, like, does this guy sleep? It's crazy. So one of the hardest working individuals I've seen. I know there's a lot of people that back me up with that, but just like, for those of you watching, listening, like most of us in the roofing industry have heard of roofing.com, Revolt, RoofCon, thousands of people every year at the event. Like that doesn't happen without telling stories, without William's ability to get in there, to document, to tell those stories, to share those stories and videos out there on social media. And none of that is really possible at the level at which it's operating without storytelling. So thanks for the work that you do, the impact that you have. And you're right. It's not about the roof. It's not about the revenue of the roofing business. It's about the people behind it, the struggles that we overcome, the things that we have in common, the things that we're all going through, right? That you don't really open up about until you're kind of in person in that environment. We're doing this virtually, which is fine. You're in South Carolina, I'm in New Jersey, but like, I'm on the road every month, going out there and, meeting and interacting and learning and teaching and everything like that. And that's where the real stuff really happens. So I look forward to seeing you at the upcoming events for sure.
One thing I think that also, one thing further, you brought up something that made me think of it when it comes to shooting. We talk about like being able to go out and shoot a lot. You got to be able to edit fast. Yeah. You have to. And I take it way too seriously, but that's because I absolutely love it. And there's nothing else I'd rather do than be able to get content shot, edited out the door quick. I don't care what it is. Like I just shot a wedding on Saturday. It was out by Monday. Done. Get it out. Done. Because the story is fresh in your head. It's best to get after it as soon as you can. Another reason why it's great to have somebody whether even part-time, full-time, whatever, somebody that you can offload your video marketing to, because then that way they can shoot and they can get it done quickly. When you're an owner, you sometimes don't have that kind of time to be able to shoot and edit within the same day. And then you let things sit. And then when they sit, you forget some of the cool moments. And you then have to go through all that stuff all over again. And you're like, oh, I think I had something, but I've lost it now because it's like a week later.
Yeah.
So that's why, like, as soon as we shot that Murph, I was like, no, we're getting this done because I remember this was good, and this was good. Like a handful of things. I was like, and then, as it's going on, you're thinking, like, what can we add? Oh, I remember we're doing this thing about the Murph. So let's add in the president, let's add in Bush giving them Medal of Honor posthumously. Then, I remember the doc I watched about Bush, and then there was this great song. Let's use that song for it. All these different things. So that's what gets really fun, is just like when you have those thoughts going through your head, you got to be able to get them out quick, because then like you lose the momentum and you lose the choices. So I just wanted to couple that real quick with what we're talking about with shooting, is that being able to edit quickly. And again, I come from the University of Hunter Ballou, where done is better than perfect. And that's exactly the mindset that I've got to have a lot of times too, is like, let's get this thing out there. I'm going to get as close to perfect as I can.
Right. If
it's not quite there, it's all right. When we get them on the next one, I'll learn from my mistakes or whatnot. But I just wanted to mention that quick.
No, that's excellent. Speed is certainly important, right? And I think that holds people back, like trying to be perfect. Like you have to have those minimum standards, yes, of what is acceptable to put out there. But you need to get things out there for sure, especially in today's crowded, noisy world. I want to go back to story real quick, just for a couple minutes and touch on that. you're talking about, we're talking about roofing. Most of our audience is the roofing industry, contracting industry. And you run into roofing company owners that are like, well, it's not that interesting. We do this every day. We just put on this roof. Like, what do you say to those people that are struggling to like come up with a story? Is it just like simply like a before, during, after? Just talk about why you're doing this roof. Is it like trying to tie it into community, or like what tips do you have there?
So I think the first thing you do is get in a room with a whiteboard and start sketching it out. You just make a list. Make a list of all the possible ideas. What are all the possible different things that we could do? And you'd be surprised how quickly that list can get really long, because once you just start thinking about it, it's like, oh, we could do a video on this. So like start off with I think the most important video is your company story, and not just like getting into like, this is what we offer, pricing or what. No, just talking about who you are. What are your core values? What is your mission? Those things, like we talk about that night one of a Revolt retreat, but it's still important for any type of video, Revolt or not. You could do an entire video just talking about like, as a business owner, like what are your core values and what inspired you to want to have this business in the first place? We're not even talking about a roof. Maybe that specifically ties into your story, but for the most part, we're not even talking about the nuts and bolts that have to do with the literal job that it is. It's like, why do you care about having this business in this community? That can be a huge part of it. So you can do a video on your core values, your mission. You can do an entire video about your culture. What kind of culture do you have at your job? Do you guys have do you have company events? Do you have things where you bring your families together? Do you do events like where you bring the community in? Do you do events for your community? What kind of philanthropy do you do back into your community? Cornerstone put on 12 proms during the pandemic when the high schools were shutting them down. That itself was a video, because it's like, this is what they're giving back. Again, it has nothing to do with roofs. So you don't have to get stuck in roofs aren't interesting. Yeah, they're not. So figure out like what are the things that can be connected to it that can be really interesting. So again, stuff like stuff that you're doing in the community. Who are some of your reps? What are their stories? That stuff is so cool. Like we have so many reps at Cornerstone. We have one rep that started off just like building chimneys, making only like 20 grand a year. And then like took a risk, took a job in roofing and got up to 6 figures, and now was able to buy land for his family and being able to provide for his family in a way he never thought possible. There's a story. It's a great story. And it just, all of it can always connect back to what we were talking about with core values and the mission and everything. And so you can get beyond that. Are you guys involved in any parades? Like we do parades all the time up in the upstate here. So there's always a Cornerstone float, or there's a Cornerstone presence in there, like just showing the trucks out. That's great stuff. That's stuff that you can go record. That's easy. That's really easy. And then if you want to lean more towards the roofing side specifically, then it's like, okay, let's get some customers on camera who are satisfied with their work and want to be able to go on there and talk about like, what was great about X company coming in to help them out. Who are some of the people they work with specifically? Maybe they can be on camera too. If it's a project manager talking about what was successful about that. Maybe you can also do videos that are just strictly educational for homeowners. Like, I'm a project manager. Here are some things you can look for. Really easy things. Like, even if you can build like, maybe even like we have a mock roof that we have, it's on the ground that's got shingles on it and everything that you can go on there and you can use as something to demonstrate like, oh, wow, that's what hail damage looks like. Not to say that we're going to turning customers into experts, but at least like give them an idea. Like if they run into an issue down the road, oh, okay, well, they gave me some great education. I'm going to reach out to them because they gave me some of those great pointers on what I can do and stuff like that. So right there, we just got off like 6-7 videos that you can do. And, you can repurpose those. You can do different versions of those. Like hardly any of them actually had to do with literally roofing.
Right.
So there's tons of ways to do it.
That's awesome, man. I think everyone watching this, listening to this right now is nodding their head, be like, yes, we do those things. Yes, we do that. We do happy hours. We do this. We have people. We can highlight them. So it's a matter of giving it a little bit of forethought, like Williams mentioned, like the whiteboard, right? Think about these things in advance, whether it's weekly planning, whether it's your weekly meeting, sales meeting, whatever it is, like do a little bit of planning, find a resource, find someone that can help you with the shooting and the editing. And there you go. That's like your 2-step process right there. It's like, find someone to do the work, do some planning, and then like go out and just document what you're already doing. So that just keeps it very, very simple and you're already doing things week in and week out as a company. Just document and tell the story of what you're doing, and that's going to get people to know who you are. It's going to get people to be familiar with you and what services you provide and how you are a part of the community. And then when they need your services, when property owners in your area are in need of the services that you offer, well, you're going to be top of mind because you've been telling those stories. So
one of the things we did, an idea I had when I worked at the first like actual full-time shooting job I had was for the South Carolina Fire Academy. So what was really neat was when they have a recruit school, it was like an 8-week recruit school. One of the ideas I had for it, because the social was just burgeoning, because it's when you're going through the state, social media can be really rigid because there's a lot of precaution, like, okay, we'll post this, not post this, or whatever. And one of the things I told was like, well, why don't we go grab clips just throughout the week and show like what a recruit learned during like week 3 or 4 or whatever of the recruit school. And to tie it into what you're talking about with roofing or with any kind of contractors, I go out to shoot a couple clips. Doesn't have to be a lot. Maybe I only shoot for 30 minutes and then I'm done for the day. And then I'll do it on Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. Maybe I'll edit on Thursday and then it's out on Friday or something like that. That's one type of video you can do, is just a consistent weekly recap of what you guys were doing.
Yeah.
Now, some weeks may be more interesting than others, and that's fine. But if you've got a week where you're like, we're going to be doing this type of roof and this type, completely different ones, different size houses, different types of houses, and we're doing this little event in the community or whatnot, why not just go grab just a snippet of each and you can put together something for your week at the end. Like that, again, ties back to what you're talking about at the very beginning, that purpose of B-roll, shooting. Just grab as much as you can, because you never know when you can use it. Even if it's not just for an individual thing, you can use it for something maybe as a compilation or something down the road.
All right. Awesome, man. I appreciate that. Like, I think a lot of people are taking notes, hopefully get the ideas flowing, get the creative juices flowing, and they've got some tangible things that they can go do to get out there and tell their story. So I appreciate you sharing, opening up. You've got a ton of experience. You're someone that inspires me with your work ethic and your passion for what you do. There's no replacing that, right? You're not doing it for the money. You love, obviously, I'm sure you're compensated well, but you're a passionate, individual and leader. So thanks for your inspiration there.
Thank you, man.
Before we head out, you got a few minutes to answer just a couple quick lightning round questions. Have some fun.
Yeah. Let's do it.
All right, lightning round. Okay, we're all about personal development. We're all about professional development. I'm guessing you are a reader. What book are you currently reading?
I just finished Winning, Tim Grover. The second one, I read Relentless. I'm not super deep I mostly read books about movies, but if I'm going to do self-development, I'm a Grover guy. So I just finished Winning. So absolutely, that was phenomenal. If you liked Relentless, it's a great kind of, it couples with it nicely and pushes it a little bit further.
Nice. Yeah, I read them both last year. I like Relentless a lot better, but Winning was definitely a good, kind of reinforcement as well.
Yeah.
So speaking of movies, I didn't have this on my list, but I got to ask you, do you have a favorite? Is that a tough question or?
No, so I always maintain a batch of 5. He's back again, folks. It's Danskin. I'll be real quick. I always hold 5. So Star Wars, the original Star Wars, always against it changed everything. It's the most influential movie of all time in a lot of ways. So that one, I love Casablanca. That's an old movie, but I love it. I think it's the best screenplay ever written. The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly. I love Westerns. If I could make Westerns, that would be that I'd be in heaven. That's my favorite type of movie overall. So The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly. I used to have the original Top Gun. I'm going to tell you, that new Top Gun is phenomenal. Like, I'd easily put that in my top 5. That is an incredible cinematic experience. Absolutely. Absolutely.
It is, really, yeah.
Yeah. And then finally, Rocky. Rocky's always my number 5 in there, because when you talk about just stories you want to tell, like, it's an underdog story. So many companies have an underdog story. That's the quintessential cinematic underdog story, is Rocky. That's why I love it.
Wow.
So there's 5 for you.
That was a non-scripted question, but I know it seems like you've given us a lot of thought. So that's really cool. I wrote those down. Thank you. How about your next travel destination?
Well, that will be Revolt. It'll be Gatlinburg in October 13th through 16th. So we'll be going there to to Eastern Tennessee again to do another retreat. So we'll be headed there.
Nice. Sounds good. How about when you're not shooting, when you're not editing, what is William doing on a free Saturday?
I'm probably thinking about I'm just kidding. No joke. A lot of times, like, I have to really shut my brain off because I'm always thinking about something or other. But no, in all honesty, I'm spending time with my kids, but even more so, I'm trying to find time to spend with just my wife, just me and her, because my wife works for Michelin. She's in a very like a big time like communications director position there. So she's got her own type of stress. I've got mine, and between the kids, if I can find time just to spend with her, that's what I'm looking for on a free day or free Saturday.
Wow, that's awesome, man. Love to hear that. It is hard. It is hard. Yesterday was Tuesday. My wife and I just we took out lunch and had lunch in our back patio for like 20 minutes, and like even that, just little things like that. It's really good to connect. All right, so as we part. Awesome. One piece of advice for someone that's watching, listening, that just needs a little bit of a push to get outside their comfort zone, get out of their own way.
The thing I always tell new, like any type of shooters, especially if I'm just meeting them at a conference or whatever, is just you got to keep going with, got to keep looking for opportunities to make content, even if it's just for yourself, because I mean, there was a long time where I didn't have a full-time job like this. I needed to find opportunities to shoot. Like I have a friend, I'm mentoring him in the video field. And right now he doesn't have a full-time job. So, I told him, go find events in the area and go shoot them and then give them the video and show them that you have the work ethic and the passion to do it. Because if you do, the tech and all the stuff will come. It'll come in time. You'll learn all that stuff. You can look up videos on that. That's fine. You can't look up on videos on how to care and be passionate about telling the story. You got to get out there and show that you're willing to do it at any hour, any time, any day, and being able to edit any hour after that, being able to just put forth that kind of effort. So my biggest advice is just always just be relentless, because I that's why I love those books. Is like, you just got to have that relentless attitude about it. And that no matter what, I'm going to create something, even if it's not for somebody, it can be for me to help get myself out there as a creator. So if you're doing that, I'm telling you, eventually somebody's going to be like, yeah, I'll give this person a shot. Maybe it works out, maybe it doesn't, but at least you're going to create an opportunity. I mean, for the most part, people aren't knocking down doors to find people that have media arts degrees or whatever. But you gotta really hustle to get yourself noticed, to be able to find your way in. Because let's face it, unfortunately, and Joe, you've probably come across this, marketing is always the first thing that's going to get cut. If something's going to get cut, it shouldn't be, but darn it, it is. So you just got to be relentless about being able to create stuff. You got to be relentless in it. Even if it's not for something right now, it can be for something later. You just got to keep creating.
Perfect ending, man. Be relentless. Create your own opportunity wherever you are, whatever position you're in, whatever position you aspire to. Awesome words, brother. I appreciate it. Thanks so much for spending some time. I know you're busy, obviously, but thanks for sharing your experience, your insight, and expertise with our audience. I think they'll get a lot of value from it.
Thank you, Joe. Appreciate the time, man.